Place in a lush, vibrant fantasy world, full of painterly textures and bright, rich colors. But this world has come under siege by an organized army of massive otherworldly invaders known as the Reveni, who have begun systematically eradicating humanity off the face of the planet. You play as Avil, one of the last of the Sentinels, a legendary group of warriors with the skills and tools necessary in order to take down these massive foes. The gameplay in Extinction emphasizes high-speed traversal around the environment. In addition to the basic jump and double jump, Avil can also run horizontally along walls, run vertically straight up walls, air dash through the sky, come floating back down gently, can bounce off of springy objects in the environment such as building awnings or treetops, and can use his whip like a grappling hook to get around. When he does this, time slows down, giving him time to plan his next move and make split-second decisions. Of course, Avil's ultimate goal is to save as much of humanity as possible. He needs to protect them from the constant onslaught of the ogres and their minions. He does this by engaging them in real-time, skill-based combat. In addition to his series of regular strikes, he can also execute powerful AoEs, launch enemies into the sky, slam them back down to the ground, cancel his attacks into rune strikes for massive damage, and cancel his attacks into dodges in order to evade his opponent's strikes. Of course, the star of the show is Avil's combat with the ogres. Now, with their minions defeated, it's time for Avil to take on their master, one of the enormous Reveni who has been rampaging through the countryside, obliterating everything in our fully destructible environments. The ogres themselves are fully dismemberable, but they wear armor in order to protect themselves. In order to take this beast down, Avil must first destroy that armor. This is done via a powerful charged-up rune strike. Once the armor is destroyed, Avil can then dismember the limb underneath. Dismembering limbs like this builds energy which Avil will need to ultimately be able to strike the finishing blow. And as you can see, this ogre is none too happy about the loss of its leg, and Avil has to dodge its attacks while also trying to remove the remaining armor in order to get to the limbs beneath them. This is an extremely dangerous situation to be in because if any of these blows actually manages to hit Avil, it will be death in a single hit. Having now absorbed enough power and weakened the ogre sufficiently, Avil's now ready to go ahead and strike the finishing blow. Using the traversal options we showed off earlier, Avil is able to climb up the ogre's back, take out its helmet, and deliver the coup de grace. That was a relatively easy fight against a relatively basic opponent, but not all enemies are so simple. Depending on what armor, weapons, and abilities they have, each ogre presents its own unique challenges, and requires different strategies and tactics to take down. Here, we have an example of an ogre decked out in gold armor. This armor does open up some new traversal options for Avil, but as you can see, it's also much harder to remove. Each piece is protected by multiple latches that must be destroyed in order to remove it. 4 of them on each leg piece, and 2 on each arm piece. Having finally destroyed all the latches, Avil is now able to dismember the first of this ogre's legs. Moving on to the arms, however, is now much more difficult, as they are constantly moving, making it hard to target those tiny latches. Avil must dodge the ogre's attacks and their minions' attacks while doing this. It has now taken sufficiently long to take down this ogre that its leg has regenerated, and it stood back up. But it no longer matters. Flush with energy from his last kill, Avil is ready. He climbs up the back of the ogre and is presented with one final challenge, staying up there long enough to take out its remaining armor. First, he removes the helmet, and then the collar. With these 2 obstacles out of the way and its neck exposed, Avil can finally go in for the kill, and so the second ogre falls.
Right? To hear about it is to want to play it. Who doesn't want to go to feudal Japan Who doesn't want to be a samurai with a katana on their hip, right?
When you tell somebody that you get to play as a samurai, you don't really have to say anything else. You just say that fantasy, and everybody just builds a list of scenarios and narratives and gameplay scenes that you might get to play in that.
When we hit upon the Mongol invasion of Tsushima of 1274, it all clicked. Suddenly you knew who the heroes were, who the villains were, what the stakes were for the world, and you had a video game.
I'll ask you once again, Samurai. Do you surrender?
Ghost of Tsushima is a action stealth adventure game where you play a samurai in feudal Japan, and we're taking inspiration from the historical point in time where the Mongol army invaded the island of Tsushima.
All those locations are in-engine, they're in the world. That's the place that you're going to defend, a huge island filled with a lot of different places, towns, people. There's so much to learn, there's so much to see.
I think player choice in this game will mean something very different than other games we've met in the past. We really want you to have that choice of, hey, that cool bamboo forest over there, I really want to check it out. I want to head in that direction and I want to, see what it is. There's no waypoint. There's no thing that says, go here and look at this bamboo forest. And we just hopefully are presenting something that's beautiful and exotic, that's different than the current place that you might be in. And that will come at a world choice, right? Like that's your adventure choice. Like it's like, where do I want to go?
In Infamous, we let you explore powers. In this game, we let you explore what it is to be a samurai inside of this enormous landscape of medieval Japan.
Here at the studio, sometimes we talk about the world as a character. And I think that even in Second Son, we pushed really hard to make the flavors of the world come alive. There's all these other elements that make you remember what it really felt like to be a tourist in this place. And we're going to do the same thing for this game, starting with some of the shots you see in the trailer. We've been working on this game for 3.5 years, and it's exciting to be at a spot where we're finally able to share with the world what we've been working on.
And now it's just up to us to actually deliver this fantasy, this wonderful fantasy about being a samurai in feudal Japan.
Freelancer.
Fraxley,
Listen, there's trouble. Big trouble.
what did you do?
I made a mistake. I hired some people. They weren't freelancers. I know. They said they could handle it, and the price was right. I thought maybe...
Unbelievable.
You're right. It was stupid. I'm sorry. But they're still out there. Somewhere. If you could just bring them back. Anything you need.
I'll get to it tomorrow.
All right.
In the world of Anthem, you and your friends are freelancers, the heroes who leave the safety of the walls of Fort Tarsus to explore the unknown and protect humanity. Let's join 2 players as they head out on an expedition.
Hey, Paul. You ready to go?
I'm just grabbing some supplies, just about ready.
What are you going to use today?
I decided to go with the Colossus.
I'm going to use my Ranger. Try out some new upgrades.
Every player will own an array of exosuits we call Javelins. These suits give players superhuman capabilities and are heavily customizable so they look and play how you want.
Bam. Looking good. Nice. You've got a mortar equipped.
Yeah, I got it on the weekend. You lead the way, I'll follow.
This is a vast open world you explore with your friends. Each Javelin exosuit has its own unique playstyle. The Ranger is balanced and all-purpose, while the Colossus is a tanking powerhouse.
Alright, let's see what's up here.
The world of Anthem is hostile, and threats can come from any direction. It's a dynamic world where the unexpected is around every corner.
I'm not sure we want to use all our supplies on this guy.
in Dontnod's narrative-driven action RPG, Vampire. Exploring London, talking to her citizens will reveal hints about the location of your objectives, but you'll have to earn them by playing with the delicate social microcosms that tie the survivors of the Spanish flu and vampire societies together.
Of course I do. You're that man who seemed so lost when he entered my bar a few nights ago.
Thank you for your hospitality. I'm Jonathan Reed, by the way.
I'm still Tom Watts. Welcome back, Doctor.
Tom, I need to find Sean Hampton as quickly as possible. I've been told you could help me.
I heard the sad saint was recovering at Pembroke Hospital. Did he leave or something?
The important thing is I find him, quickly.
Why not try his night asylum? He takes care of those who need a meal or a roof there.
Where is it?
It's in an old warehouse, northwest of here. Just follow the bank to the west and go north when you reach the end of the pier.
So we're now en route to the docks to find Sean and understand why he's fled away from the hospital and probably killed another patient, Harriet Jones. As a vampire, you have access to skills in combat as well as outside of combat, often to help you traverse her semi-open world. The most efficient way to grow stronger is to feed from the healthy, not to fight those risking the flu and pollution in the streets to hunt vampires and skulls. If we were unable to beat this mini-boss, we would be tempted to return to the bar, and perhaps feed from Tom for a greater experience boost, returning stronger, but with London thinning in numbers. Vampire's combat system uses a mix of melee and ranged weapons supported by vampire abilities that allow you to be the vampire you want to be. The gameplay is based on timing, positioning, and management of different resources. The stamina bar regulates your melee moves and dodges, the blood bar controls the use of your supernatural abilities, and the health bar represents your health. There are many areas to explore, loot, and pick up information to learn about the world, its lore, and what happened to London since disease spread. At the beach, we're fighting people operating under the head of the vampire hunter's orders. The Pruin guards are investigating this beach, searching for skulls.
Stay close, keep an eye on each other.
Skulls are a lesser species of vampires lurking in quarantine areas, underground or in dark corners. Due to the Spanish flu epidemic, they have suffered heavy mutations and have recently become very aggressive. It's part of your quest to understand how they became such creatures and ultimately find a cure to save them. In this world, the human vampire hunters and skulls are having their own fight. As long as we don't get too close, we can just...
last one was nighttime during the rain, and this is daytime during the snow.
Yeah, and it's not just cosmetic, and I think that's one of the things we really wanted to emphasize, because this time we're showing sort of a day in the life of Deacon. You see he's on the drifter bike here. We wanted to show a little more of the bike riding and how the weather can kind of impact that. So we have this drifting mechanic, right? You see him kind of slipping and sliding around a little bit.
Changes the handling of the bike. That's really interesting. Now, there were wolves there last time, John, and these wolves would pursue you down this road, and then Deacon had to turn his back, shoot a wolf, and he got clotheslined right up there, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So this time you see that he wasn't being chased by the wolves. That's a dynamic event that can that can happen or not. It just depends on when you're playing the game.
Interesting.
And this time Deacon saw the ambush and he was able to avoid it. So he kind of comes up and around and behind them.
So does weather impacts whether these creatures show up or not in daytime, nighttime, all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially the freakers, they come out, they're mostly nocturnal, but they will come out as the weather gets colder. They become stronger in the cold.
Right.
And so that will, again, kind of change up the way the game plays.
That's very, very, I kind of love that you decided to do this as a demo to show two completely different iterations on the same exact mission in the game.
Yes, exactly. So we wanted to have, the job is basically the same. Deacon hears that his buddy's in trouble, rides out to save his life. And, as you can see here, this is a completely different experience from what we showed in the first demo. In the first one, Deacon gets clotheslined, and it sounded very painful, by the way.
Oh, speaking of painful, okay, so the combat in this game is fairly brutal. John, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, we just wanted to make it as realistic as possible. So, yeah, we're not holding back on that at all. And Sam's done most of his own stunt work for this. And I can tell you that when we're on the performance stage and we're capturing that stuff, we just try to keep it real, right?
Right. Well, right. There was sort of a decision made at some point. I've been on the project for 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah, I think 3 years.
And so early on, I think there was a more, what were we? It was more Kurt Russell and sort of a two-fisted thing, and then it turned into, hey, let's take this quite seriously. And what that required is a lot more. Taking this combat stuff and showing the horror of the violence that happens and it were this type of circumstance to take place. I mean, realism, weirdly enough, is the thing we keep going back to when it comes to not just the stunts, but also the performance style. I think, it was very important that it doesn't seem like a bunch of actors, saying lines. It was all very incidental.
And we wanted the world to sort of reflect that as well. So you saw there that, Deacon broke into that emergency vehicle and found some supplies. So this is what we're calling our survival vision. So you saw that earlier when he was looking at Manny's bike on the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of a way of seeing tracks in the world and sort of imagining what might have happened. Mm-hmm. And here I just wanted to point out that you're seeing in this part of the demo that there are freakers there. There weren't there before because it wasn't snowing. It was, and it was getting lighter out. It wasn't getting darker like it is. And so, it changes up the way you can play through the level.
And what is this?
We call this the meat wall.
The meat wall.
Yeah, and it's not just there, to make the guys who put them up to seem evil. They're there for a purpose because, again, freakers are living creatures. They eat. That's their primary thing. They want to eat. And so you hang these dead freakers up, and any freaker, rather than coming into their camp like you see here, they would actually
stop and snack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with this freaker that they've hung upside down. Mm-hmm. There's a bear trap underneath it, and they use that because a freaker will come, be attracted to the meat, and then hit that trap.
Interesting.
Another thing you just saw, by the way, is that tin can.
The tin can trap that you
that's an alarm that the Marauders will put up, and this is again some of the things that Marauder camps just do. And you find these Marauder camps throughout the world. You'll find traps like that, and then if you're careful and you're paying attention, you can avoid them. Because in the first demo, Deacon didn't avoid it, and he set off that alarm.
Right. Now this is the same tactic that he used last time. Throws the rock to get someone to lure him over and have him step in the bear trap. But this one plays out a little bit differently than last time. One of the things that struck me, and we've talked about this obviously as we've shot, but there's an effort of the other Marauders to get this guy to shut up, and he won't.
Yeah, and so in the first demo, Deacon's heading on down the trail, and you can hear that happening behind him.
Right.
And this time we're showing what happened. So, he's watching everybody react to this poor guy trapped in in that bear trap, and she just is like, shut up, shut up, shut up, and then just loses it and shoots the guy.
Right.
And of course, in the meantime, Deacon, is crafting a Molotov and just takes them all out.
Right. Oh boy, that's good. Ow. Ow.
So yeah, so again, it's like in the previous demo, Deacon would have gone off to the trail down to the right. This time he's going to head this way. He follows the tracks, and comes under a sniper attack.
Now let me ask you something about the survival. Okay, there's a sniper attack coming, but the survival vision is, if you don't say upgrade your survival vision, can you miss clues? I mean, are there things that you would get if you upgraded your survival vision that would help you complete the mission better?
Exactly, and you have to, we have a whole skill tree, and it's all tied to the experience that you can earn as you're just playing through the game, and then you can upgrade those things.
What's happening here? We got a freaker tied to a tree.
Yeah, so this is another type of trap that Marauders will set. They will set, they will basically chain freakers to the perimeter of their camps, and they use them as kind of an alarm system. And then that, you saw that Marauder there. He was just tormenting the poor freaker, and then so Deacon kind of takes advantage of that.
Well, and you think for a moment that Deacon is the guy, he's sort of helping the freaker by, getting the guy that taunted him. Is like, no, and then he's going to take the freaker out right afterward.
Exactly.
And this is a bit of silent sniping using the crossbow.
Yeah, so this whole sequence at the end plays out very differently. In the first demo, you saw Deacon use a swarm. He weaponized a swarm, lured them into the camp, and then they kind of did the work for him. There's no swarm in this run-through. Right. So the player really has to go in and use what we're calling our strategic sandbox combat, and that's just, stealth mechanics and setting and using traps, whole arsenal of weapons. You see there's a variety of weapons that Deacon's going to use through this, including the crossbow. He crafts his own bolts. And he's got to figure out how to get up to Manny, just using his combat skills instead of doing it strategically.